The NHS is failing thousands of patients with eating disorders who are being turned away by doctors because their condition is not deemed serious enough. An estimated 1.6 million people suffer from eating disorders in the UK. However, only half are actually diagnosed and even less treated. Claire Greenway first developed an eating disorder when she was just 11 years old. By the time she finally received help from the NHS at age 17, she was fatally ill. We spoke to Claire, now 20, about her experience.
I think I first went to the GP about my eating disorder probably when I was about 12, because my school were concerned about me not eating. And it's a phase, she'll get over it, she's just looking for attention, she's not really ill.
Healthcare professionals often dismiss eating disorder patients as being just a bit funny about food, and as a result, they do not receive the treatment that they're entitled to on the NHS. 40% of sufferers in the past year have been told that their BMI was not low enough to entitle them to treatment. Claire was eventually put on a waiting list for the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services. These services offer treatment for youngsters up to the age of 16 with a variety of mental health issues. This is what they told us about their eating disorder services when we went to find out more.
My name's Deborah Lloyd. I am CAM's team leader.
My name's Lynn Green. I'm a clinical psychologist by background. My current role is the clinical lead for CAMS in Lancashire Care Foundation Trust.
The gold standard, that's what it will be from the government, is for acute. It should be 18 weeks.
It's certainly an aspiration for us to stick within the 18 weeks, and there are things in place within LCFT to try and make sure that we do that. As far as I'm aware, it's not a legal requirement as yet.
If the referral is a good referral and it lists everything, we've got a good understanding in that referral, then obviously it helps us to decide if that is an urgent and needs to be seen sooner or not. And also sometimes some referrals will come through from GPs and it's not necessarily indicating that there's a concern or a worry, could it be an eating disorder.
Usually by the time they come to us, they've lost quite a significant amount of weight. The eating disorder's taken quite a hold.
In our waiting list, we have urgents, the ones that we think need to be seen very soon, and then we would have a routine waiting list. So ones that can wait, that aren't necessarily a presentation of, saying, eating disorder.
There should really be another service who are picking them up early, but in the absence of another service, then we're picking up all the eating disorder referrals. So in that sense, if we are the only service who's working with these young people, then yes, it's too late.
A study conducted by the eating disorder charity Beat concluded that 26% of patients had to wait more than 6 months for treatment. Sadly, Claire was one of these people, and her family had to go to the lengths of spending their insurance money on accessing private treatment for her.
In the end, we ended up actually using my dad's insurance to go and see a private doctor because the services were taking too long.
Breathe Therapies, based in Preston, Lancashire, provides private treatment for eating disorder sufferers. I wanted to find out more about how what they offer differs from what the NHS offers, and therefore I went to speak to them.
Individuals were going along to their GPs and were struggling to get access to services at an appropriate time, and were only getting access to services when they'd become emaciated and physically unwell, rather than it being acknowledged that this is a mental health issue.
We don't have a specific criteria. If somebody's suffering with eating distress or an eating disorder, they can gain access to our service.
The individual is very central to their treatment package, and we find out what the individual's needs are and put the treatment package around the person, rather than finding out what is your diagnosis, and therefore you're going to have this because this is what we've got available. And if we haven't got it available, then we'll find it and we'll bring it in.
It tends to be the common case. They come to us because they've received nothing from the GP or they're not satisfied with the services that have been offered to them.
It's a really critical time where they can't get inpatient treatment, they can't get intensive the intensive treatment that they need on the NHS.
If people want to access our services and they can pay for it, there's no waiting list. We aim to give them an assessment appointment the week after, so they're straight in with us. We used to have primary care trust funding and we could offer our treatment for free, but unfortunately with government reshuffles that got pulled, now we receive no government funding, and there's recently been a bid cast, and all the funding for eating disorder treatment has gone to Lancashire Care, so we don't receive any of it. So even if our patients applied to the CCG for funding, it would get rejected.
Which is really quite upsetting for us as a service. As I say, we are a not-for-profit service, but it costs us money to be able to deliver specialist services.
So the main sort of barrier people have with coming through to us is paying for the treatment.
So here's the problem. Sufferers don't have a real first port of call. GPs can only refer on and place them on a waiting list, which is sky high in the NHS, and organisations that can offer treatment quickly and effectively must be privately funded. This is why, all too often, sufferers are left stranded in the system to get weaker and weaker. Claire is a true example of this. When her family's insurance funds ran out, all anyone could do was watch her weight plummet, while she remained on the NHS waiting list. It was only when she was deemed critically ill and was actually dying that she was allowed access to this as an inpatient.
I wasn't really ill until I was about 17, about March 2012. That was when I got really ill and had to go into hospital for 6 months.
For the past few years, inpatient care units have been affected by a national bed shortage. This means that there are not enough beds in the country to cater for the amount of eating disorder sufferers, and therefore they are not receiving the specialist treatment that they desperately need to recover. Patients are ending up in hospitals where the specialist treatments just aren't there.
I wasn't in an eating disorder hospital. I think it would have been helpful if the staff had been trained to deal with eating disorders, because they weren't really, they hadn't really experienced eating disorders, because it's not a ward that normally has that kind of issue.
It's quite clear that eating disorder sufferers are not receiving a satisfactory standard of care. Everyone at all stages of treatment agrees that somewhere something needs to change. We spoke to the UK's Minister of State for Care and Support about how he is planning to change this problem.
I'm Norman Lamb and I'm the Minister for Care and Support, and I have responsibility for mental health policy. I don't think generally in mental health GPs get sufficient training as part of their overall training package in mental health. A very significant proportion of their daily work involves mental health, but that's not reflected in the training. We've required Health and Education England to change that, but within that, eating disorders needs to be a prominent part. In October, the Deputy Prime Minister announced the introduction for the first time ever of waiting time standards in mental health, and specifically for early intervention in psychosis and for access to psychological therapies. But we also published at the same time a 5-year vision about how we transform mental health services, introducing comprehensive waiting time standards. And we specifically mentioned eating disorders, and my absolute determination is to see whether we can introduce a standard by 2016 so that youngsters across the country know how quickly they should have access to a proper service. We know that eating disorders can kill people. I've had a dreadful case in my constituency of a young teenager who lost her life after quite a rapid deterioration. We would never tolerate the situation that exists in physical health. We have a very clear understanding that if you have suspected cancer, you will get access to an appointment with a specialist within 2 weeks. There's nothing like that in eating disorders, but that has to change. Well, I feel myself on a mission. I didn't expect to ever be a minister. It's not part of the mindset of a Lib Dem, but it makes me, in a way, all the more determined to use my time in this job to achieve genuine change. And I'm totally driven by the imperative of achieving equality for mental health with physical health, and part of that is to ensure that youngsters and others who have an eating disorder get access quickly to evidence-based treatment that can help them recover.
Obviously, eating disorders are not being taken seriously at any stage in treatment. Somewhere, something does have to change. Join me later in the year, where I'll be assessing how effective this campaign has been.